working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus. On today's headlines. Pakistan's southern Sindh province braced for a fresh deluge from swollen rivers in the north as the death toll from this year's monsoon topped 1,000. And the DFA said so far, no Filipinos have been reported dead in these massive floods. The Department of Foreign Affairs Sunday night urged Filipinos in Libya to take shelter at home as deadly clashes in the capital killed 23. Instead of dragging each other down, President Bongbong Marcos Jr. said the only way to succeed as a nation is to lift each other up by being instruments of peace and solidarity. He made this call in a speech during the commemoration of National Heroes Day at the Libingan ng mga Bayani in Taguig City. And infectious disease expert Dr. Ron Jean Solante said there may be a downtrend in COVID cases in the country, but the decrease is slow, meaning we're not out of the woods yet. First in our news, Pakistan's flooded southern Sindh province is bracing for a fresh deluge from swollen rivers in the north as the death toll from this year's monsoon topped 1,000.
او دا روډي زمونږ ویوړو دغه کرش پلانټ چې دی دا زمونږ ویوړو او مزید زمونږ د کلي ته نور هم خطره ده که دا یو بلاک یې ویوړ نو مزید لږه ډېره خطره ده ټول کلی په خطره کې دی او د کورونو کې خلکو بیګا چې دا کور کې شپې نه دي کړي ځنه ګاونډیانو ګریان نور خلکو کره تللي دي.
The death toll from monsoon flooding in Pakistan since June has reached 1,061, according to figures released Monday by the country's National Disaster Management Authority. It said 28 people had died in the previous 24 hours, but authorities were still trying to reach cut-off villages in the mountainous north. The annual monsoon is essential for irrigating crops and replenishing lakes and dams across the Indian subcontinent, but each year it also brings a wave of destruction. Officials say this year's monsoon flooding has affected more than 33 million people, 1 in 7 Pakistanis, destroying or badly damaging nearly 1 million homes. The NDMA said more than 2 million acres of cultivated crops have been wiped out, 3,457 kilometers, 2,200 miles of roads destroyed, and 157 bridges washed away. The government has declared an emergency and mobilized the military to deal with what climate change minister Sherry Raymond has called a catastrophe of epic scale. The flooding could not come at a worse time for Pakistan, where the economy is in free fall, and the former Prime Minister Imran Khan was also ousted by a parliamentary vote of no confidence in April. And so far, there are no reports of Filipinos killed by the floods in Pakistan, according to the Department of Foreign Affairs. DFA Undersecretary for Migrant Workers Affairs, Eduardo Jose de Vega, said the Philippine Embassy in Islamabad has reported to him that the Filipino community in Pakistan is safe. There are only 3,000 Filipinos in Pakistan. Most of them live in Islamabad and Karachi. The hardest hit by the floods are south of Pakistani, particularly Sindh and Balochistan provinces, which received 8 times its average August rainfall. Around 90% of the Filipinos in Pakistan are household service workers, while the rest are professionals or staff of international organizations. The Pakistan government just declared a national emergency and is appealing for international help. And a Pakistani Army helicopter conducted a rescue operation to evacuate flood victims in the lower Kohistan district of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province as the death toll of this year's monsoon tops 1,000. Now, take a look at this rescue of this man trapped inside the ravaging floods. Take a look. In today's other news, instead of dragging each other down, President Bongbong Marcos Jr. said the only way to succeed as a nation is to lift each other up by being instruments of peace and solidarity. He made this call in a speech during the commemoration of National Heroes Day at the Libingan ng mga Bayani in Taguig City. Take a look.
Huwag nawa natin ikulong ang ating mga sarili sa hidwaan at paghihilahan ng pababa. Sa halip, maging instrumenta tayo ng pagkakaisa, ng kapayapaan. Umaasa ako na sa halimbawa ng ating mga dakilang bayani, higit nating isa sa buhay ang kanilang ipinakitang pag-ibig sa bayan at ipinagtatanggol at ipinaglalaban nilang panata sa kabutihan. Buong tapang nawa nating harapin ang anumang hamon na hinaharap nang may tiwala tayo na higit na lalakas at magiging matagumpay kung tayo ay patuloy na magkakaisa at magtutulungan bilang isang bansa.
Meanwhile, President Marcos also vowed to continuously push for programs that benefit Filipino war veterans and their dependents. Take a look.
Kaisa ng Philippine Veterans Affairs Office, magpapatayo tayo ng mga ospital sa Visayas at Mindanao na ilalaan natin para sa ating mga veterano.
The Veterans Memorial Medical Center, or VMMC, in Quezon City and Philippine Veterans Affairs Office, accredited government and private hospitals nationwide that currently provide quality hospitalization, medical care, and treatment to Filipino veterans. President Marcos also hailed the farmers, OFWs, and healthcare workers, among others. Let's listen in.
Kinikilala natin ang ating mga magsasaka, mga agricultural worker na buong araw ay nagsisikap upang tugunan ang ating mga pangangailangan para sa seguridad ng supply ng pagkain. Kung hindi dahil sa kanila, wala tayong pagkain maiahain sa ating mga pamilya. Tunay silang mga bayani kailanman. Pinasasalamatan din natin ang ating mga sektor ng kalakalan at industriya na nangunguna sa landas tungo sa maunlad na ekonomiya. May mga hamon man tayong hinaharap sa nagdaang 2 taon, patuloy pa rin nilang binuksan ang kanilang mga negosyo para sa publiko. Kahanga-hanga rin ang kanilang pakikiisa sa ating pamahalaan. Ikinararangal din natin ang lahat ng mga manggagawang Pilipino na nagtatrabaho ng buong husay at buong dangal. Sa bawat likha ng kanilang mga kamay, mas lalo nilang pinagtitibay ang pundasyon ng ating ekonomiya. Papurihan din natin ang ating mga guro at iba pang kawani sa sektor ng edukasyon dahil sa kanilang hindi matatawarang dedikasyon. Sa kanilang patutulungan sa maging ligtas ang pagbubukas ng klase. Hindi rin natin kinakalimutan ang mga profesional at mga manggagawa sa sektor ng kalusugan na araw-araw ay nakikipagsapalaran sa panganib ng kalakip ng kanilang sinumpaang tungkulin. Kabilang din sa ating mga frontliner ang ating kapulisan, ang mga sundalo, ang mga barangay officialman, community leader, pati na rin ang mga ecological warriors at iba pang sektor na sa kanilang paraan at mga tungkulin ay patuloy na naglilingkod sa bayan at sa mga kapwa mamamayan. Hindi rin natin kinakalimutan ang ating mga manggagawang mandarayuhan o mas kilala natin sa tawag na OFW. Silang lahat na nagsasakripisyo sa ibayong dagat, mabigyan lamang ng magandang kinabukasan ng kanilang mga mahal sa buhay. Sa kabila ng mga pagsubok ng kanilang hinaharap, Sinusuguro natin na sila ay ligtas, lalo na ang mga naiipit sa mga kaguluhan sa bansang kanilang kinaroroonan.
This year's commemoration bears the theme Kabayanihan tungo sa pagkakaisa at pag-unlad, or heroism towards unity and progress. Former President Duterte declared National Heroes Day a regular holiday under Proclamation 1236. Republic Act 9492, signed by former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, declares the last Monday of August as National Heroes Day in the country. Prime Minister Ismail Sabri Yaacob says wait before dissolving Parliament to make way for general election. Joining us live from our ASEAN Bureau, Alfred Balmes reports from Malaysia. Alfred.
Hi Alma, good afternoon. According to the Prime Minister, among all the chatter about dissolving Parliament, he has one word response to it. He said, wait. Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaacob briefly, when asked when the Parliament would be dissolved to make a new way for the general election. He told reporters during the celebrations of 60th anniversary gathering at the Malaysia Agro Exposition Park in Serdang yesterday. Budget 2023, which was initially scheduled to be tabled in the Dewan Rakyat on October 28, has been brought forward to October 7. The change in date has further fueled talk that the Parliament would be dissolved and that the 15 general elections will be called this year. This despite Ismail Sabri's remarks on Friday that there was nothing unusual with the government decisions to bring forward the tabling of Budget 2023. He pointed out that the budget had been tabled as early as September when Tun Abdullah Ahmad Badawi was Prime Minister. The call for the dissolutions of Parliament was also made during the OMNO special briefing on Saturday. Ismail Sabri is one of OMNO-3's three vice presidents. The others are Datuk Seri Masrid Khalid and Datuk Seri Muhammad Khalid Nordin. OMNO President Datuk Seri Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidis had said that the demand to hold the 15th general election was not yet at its began when the Pakatan Harapan government fell and continued when Perikatan Nasional took over the administration. A general election must be held within 60 days of the dissolution of Parliament. Live reporting from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, this is Alfred Balmes. We live in extraordinary times. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you very much, Alfred, for that report. Looking forward to the latest developments in politics there. Really interesting. Thank you very much, Alfred. Meanwhile, here are some images of Prawit Wongsuwan arriving at the government house, meeting foreign delegation and chairing a government meeting 2 days after he became the interim leader. Take a look. Now, Thailand's Constitutional Court, to recall, on Wednesday suspended Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha from office while it considers a legal challenge that could see him thrown out months before an expected general election. The court agreed unanimously to hear a case brought by opposition parties who argue that Prayut has reached the end of his 8-year term limit as Prime Minister. Prayut, who will continue in his role as Defense Minister, has 15 days to respond to the case against him. Meanwhile, Mr. Prawit Wongsuwan, one of Prayut's deputies and another former army chief, as you see here, will take over as caretaker prime minister while the case is decided. Under Prayut's watch, the kingdom registered its worst economic performance in 30 years, and his government has also faced criticism over its handling of the pandemic. Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs on Sunday night is urging Filipinos in Libya to take shelter at home as deadly clashes in the capital killed 32 now. In a text message to reporters, DFA spokesperson Maria Teresita Daza said no Filipino has been reported among the casualties. She said, quote, "The DFA strongly urges our kababayans to take shelter at home or in other safe places while the fighting is ongoing and to contact our embassy through its hotline numbers for immediate assistance." The Libyan Health Ministry said at least 32 people were killed while 159 were injured since heavy clashes erupted between rival militias in several districts in Tripoli. According to the UN-backed Government of National Unity, the violence was triggered by a military group firing random fire at Rut al-Mar in the Zawiya Street area, while armed groups were gathering at the 27th Gate west of Tripoli and the Gypsies Gate south of Tripoli. The UN in Libya, meanwhile, called for an immediate cessation of hostilities as it reminded all parties of their obligations under international human rights and humanitarian law to protect civilians. The news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back. Welcome back. An earthquake of magnitude 6.4 struck near Mentawai Islands off the western coast of Indonesia's Sumatra Island today, according to the country's geophysics agency, or the BMKG. The quake was at a depth of 10 kilometers and has no potential to trigger a tsunami. There were no immediate reports of damage or casualties. Indonesia sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, causing it to experience frequent earthquakes. Meanwhile, another earthquake struck Indonesia's Mentawai Islands Regency in West Sumatra Island Monday morning. It was the second earthquake that hit the group of islands on the day, after a 5.2 magnitude quake that hit the area just after midnight this morning. At 05:34, Mentawai was shaken again by an earthquake measuring 5.9 on the Richter scale. Based on the location of the epicenter and the depth of the hypocenter, it was a shallow earthquake caused by the subduction activities of the Mentawai-Siberut megathrust plate segment, according to the BMKG's head of Earthquake and Tsunami Center, Daryono. The modeling results showed no potential for a tsunami. In 2004, to recall, a 9.1 magnitude quake struck the coast of Sumatra and triggered a tsunami that killed 220,000 people throughout the region, including about 170,000 in Indonesia. Back here in the country, President Bongbong Marcos Jr. has committed to help boost the country's micro, small, and medium enterprises as they cope with and hurdle the impacts of the ensuing health crisis. President Marcos made the commitment during the MSME Summit 2022 at the Manila Hotel. Let's listen in.
Our MSMEs form part of the backbone of our economy, generating more than half of our employment. And this is why it is fully recognized that this sector's critical role in our country's economic regeneration, job creation, and poverty reduction is critical. As your president, I assure you that the revitalization of our MSMEs is among the administration's top priorities. I reiterate the government's full commitment to work hand in hand with all stakeholders to make certain that MSMEs are protected and provided with ample opportunities, not only to recover from these extraordinary times, but to grow and thrive in this modern age. I commend, of course, Go Negosyo, the Department of Trade and Industry, and the U.S. Embassy in the Philippines, and all the other partners behind the success of this event. I know that it will be an avenue for the government and private sector to find ways to work together, ensuring and enabling a sound environment for the recovery of our MSMEs. I am pleased that the focus of the MSME Summit, our post-pandemic recovery and the promotion of digitalization are aligned with the priorities of the administration, for we have a common view of our shared future.
The President likewise expressed support for the MSME Development Council led by the Department of Trade and Industry as it formulates and implements strategic goals to improve 5 key business areas, which he enumerated as the business climate, access to finance, management and labor, access to technology and innovation, and access to market. Staying in the country, infectious disease expert Dr. Ron Jean Solante said there may be a downtrend in COVID cases in the country, but the decrease is slow, meaning we're not out of the woods yet. Let's listen in.
BA5 has been with us for almost 4 to 6 weeks now, in the Philippines. And it's the dominant variant globally. Most countries are reporting this from 70-75% of their positive cases. And this is expected sa BA.5 because this is the most evasive subvariant of the Omicron, particularly those who were vaccinated. So pwede ka pa rin magka-infection. For those who have previous infection, pwede ka pa rin magka-reinfection. And especially for those wala talagang bakuna, mas mataas ang risk na makakuha ng BA.5. No? And nakikita natin dito, there is a downtrend in the last week, compared last week. But if you'll notice, the downtrend is so slow. So ano ang indikasyon nito? Ang indikasyon nito is that there is still ongoing community transmission. And we cannot really say that we are off in terms of pwede na tayong mag-relax sa mga health protocols. Napaka-importante sa BA.5 is there are also descendants of this lineage na medyo mataas din ang hawaan, like the BA.5.1, BA.5.2 na nanganganak din siya. So which means that we're here, this variant of concern will be here for a longer period of time since most of us are vulnerable. Well, I hope na maging consistent itong pagbaba. But again, as I've mentioned, since this is a highly transmissible and more people now are going out, especially with the implementation now of mga full face-to-face sa mga classes, then we would expect tataas ang mga kaso. Pero tandaan natin, more than 90% of this BA.5 are mild symptoms only. So which means that among the younger populations, talagang it's a mild symptom. Pero hindi natin ito masasabi doon sa mga matatanda, mga immunocompromised, because these are the people highly vulnerable. In fact, in the last report of the WHO, the Western Pacific region is one of 2 regions reporting increase in mortality. And number 3 doon ang Philippines, aside from Japan and Australia. And this mortality are also those persons who are in the vulnerable populations with a lot of comorbidities, who are elderly. So talagang natural, yung bakuna hindi sapat. Kaya napaka-importante ang health protocol sa mga ganitong klaseng hawaan ngayon, even when you are vaccinated.
Meanwhile, the Department of Finance Secretary Benjamin Diokno told the House Committee on Appropriations that it's a waste of public funds at this point to give ayuda or cash aid to Filipinos in relation to the pandemic. But with regards to non-pandemic assistance, Diokno said the government is thinking of making the national ID a requirement for the beneficiaries. Take a look.
On the giving of ayuda in relation to the crisis, I think that should already be discontinued because we have actually fully recovered, okay? And because of the limited fiscal space. But the social protection programs, the SWD, I think that should continue. The aid to senior citizens, that should continue. But the giving out of ayuda in relation to the pandemic, that is, I think, already a waste of public funds. And we are thinking along the lines of maybe limiting the beneficiaries to those who have national ID. This is to make sure that there is an incentive for citizens to get a national ID. Only those who have national ID should be entitled to this form of ayudas. Okay, and we have the PSA promise that they will produce at least 50 million national IDs by the end of this year, although imprinted and in this form. Okay, kasi malaki po ang leakage diyan sa mga ayuda na yan eh.
And finally, Pagasa said today 2 weather disturbances could possibly affect the country this week. Pagasa is also monitoring cloud clusters that may develop into a low-pressure area this week. More from Alzar Aurelio of Pagasa.
Samantala, yung binabantayan po nating bagyo na may international name, Hinamnor, saan nasa labas ito ng ating Philippine Area of Responsibility at napakalayo sa ating bansa. Pero batay sa ating analysis at sa ating mga datang ating nakalap, posibleng pumasok sa ating PAR pagdating ng Wednesday o Thursday. Maring paggalaw nito o pagkilos ang bagyong Hinamnor ay maring tumbukin ang area ng Taiwan o sa may southern Japan. At isa pang binabantayan po natin, ang mga kaulapan nito ay posibleng may mabuong isang low pressure area ngayong linggo. Kapag nabuong isang low pressure area, posible pong makaapekto sa ating bansa, lalo na po sa bandang Northern Luzon. Dahil inaasahan po natin ang pagkilos ng isang posibleng mabuong low pressure area, pakanluran, papalapit sa ating bansa, lalo na po sa bandang Northern Luzon.
Keep safe, everyone, and that is today's ASEAN in Focus. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles. Keep safe and stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times.